Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 14 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. And for a 200% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDS200. Terms and conditions apply, and location. If you'd like to help us out and sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my March Madness plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. The madness is here, my friends, and very, very excited about it. We have so much to cover today. We have a great guest coming on, Mr. Ross Benjamin from RBwins.com and the OSGA YouTube channel. Very happy for that. We're going to break down some games for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for your weekend college basketball betting pleasures. So before we do that, I'd like to announce that we are once again, well, it didn't happen last year, obviously, because the tournament didn't happen, giving away $500 for our NCAA Bracket Challenge. So basically, all you need to do, and we'll be sending out an article on theoddsbreakers.com about it. You just click on the link. I believe it's through CBS Sports, and you join. And after you do that, you retweet our latest podcast or leave a 5-star review. Just take a quick screenshot, send it to admin at theoddsbreakers.com, and you are in for your chance to win. First place pays $250, second place pays $125, and third place pays $75 of our NCAA challenge. So very excited to bring that. I'm going to be playing it myself as well. So I'm not going to be keeping any money, though. So please, if you get a minute, try to spread the word about the Odds Breakers and theoddsbreakers.com. We really appreciate you listeners out there very much, and we'd like to give a little bit back. Our format for next week will have some early podcasts because we are going to be discussing some huge conference tournament matchups and plays, and hopefully give you a few futures out there that could hit. We're going to have Ralph Michaels on. We're going to have Brian Edwards on. Really excited about that. So here on through March, we're going to have earlier in the week podcasts to cover, obviously, the big dance and your conference tournaments all throughout March Madness. So be ready to be listening to them if you have a chance. Probably looking around Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings. Anyways, we have a great show for you today. As I mentioned before, Ross Benjamin's coming on from RBwins, and Cub Fan Danny's coming on because we have a huge UFC 259 event coming up this Saturday. What a fantastic weekend of sports. Really excited to break that down with these two guests. Before they come on, I want to quick mention moneyline rollovers versus just betting the future odds. In many cases, these future odds aren't that good. 6-1, 7-1 on some of these teams when they should be more like 10-1, 12-1. You know, I use an example on another podcast that if Loyola plays, for example, a Missouri State, I mean, with that game, Loyola is going to be around minus 500 anyways. So you're only getting 6-1 when they have to play 3 games in that tournament to win it. That's absolutely ridiculous in that situation. A money line rollover works much better. But if you look on the other side of it, Northern Iowa, 40-1. I like that one much better, and I played it a little bit for a half a star. You know, I think at 40-1, you can at least hedge that against a Loyola and make some money if they get that far. I do think that they have a lot of upside, you know, in this tournament because Drake is down so much. So moneyline rollovers are good for some of those middle-of-the-road spreads. One other deficiency about the moneyline rollover is if Loyola, for example, did get bounced, that 6-1 might be around the correct price. But 6-1 is so low with Loyola in there. That's wrong. It should be more like 12-1 of a proper price for a Missouri State, 12 or 15-1. But at the 40-1, either way, even if a money line rollover would pay more, you still don't have to put your bet in every morning, which people forget to do. And you don't really have to worry about it until they get later into the tournament here. So that's a good way to attack this Missouri Valley Conference, and it's the way that we chose to do it. All right, let's get into some regression spots. Should be our final week of regression spots before tournament time. We're going to start right out with team shooting percentage. Some teams that shot out of their minds but don't average that high of a shooting percentage. Houston shot 60% last game. They only averaged 43.4%. That could regress a little bit depending upon the defense they play. Southern shot 58.8%. They only averaged 43.5%. Texas San Antonio shot 57.6%. They only averaged 43.4%. Coppin State shot 55.6%, and they only averaged 41.2%. Cal State Bakersfield at 55.2%, and they only averaged 43.7%. Boston University shot 55.1%, and they only averaged 43.9%. And Valpo shot 54%, and they only averaged 41.8%. Longwood's another one, 54.1%. They only average 43.1%. And that's about it for them. Actually, Oregon State, 52.7%, and they only average 41.7%. Let's go on the other side of the coin. Teams that shoot really well normally, but shot really bad last game. Stanford shot 25.4%, and they averaged 46.7%. A good positive regression candidate. St. Bonaventure only shot 30%, and they averaged 44.7%. They're a good one as well. Xavier shot 32.4%, and they averaged 46.1%. Man, who did Xavier do that to? That was their loss against Georgetown. Unreal. Next one that we have that fits this is Vermont. They shot 34.6%, and they averaged 46.4%. So they're a candidate here. Michigan against Illinois. They shot 34.7%, and they averaged 49.1%, but they play State tonight, so no time for that one. Next one we have is San Diego State shot 36.4%, and they averaged 45.2%. And the last one is Notre Dame shot 37.5%, and they averaged 46.5%. And unfortunately, I was on Notre Dame against NC State. Next one we have is teams that have been pelted by free throws their last three games. They're a little bit better than probably what the final score showed. We're going to go just teams that opponents shot over 85% free throw average the last three games. Sacred Heart, Northern Arizona, Iowa State, Buffalo, Oregon State, USC, Eastern Washington, Clemson, Maryland, Baltimore County, and Montana State. Teams shot 91.7% against Montana State.
Unreal.
Next one we have is opponent 3-point percent. Teams that have been shooting threes extremely well against teams the last three games. San Francisco opponents shot 52.3%. And the defense averages 32%. Montana, teams shot 47.9%, and teams averaged 32.5%. USC, another candidate here, teams shot 46.9%, and their defense averages 32% against the three. South Florida team shot 45.5%, and their defense allows 32.3% against the three. Indiana State team shot 45.5%, and their defense allows 33.3%. Next one we're going to cover is an important one because it has to do with tournament time. It is all about teams that are very good away from home. And it's good for tournament time because it includes neutral games as well as away games. You can get this on Haslam Metrics. As you remember, we interviewed Eric Haslam last time and talked a little bit about this. So they go by points per 100 possessions. And St. Louis is the worst team away from home, minus 17. Texas A&M, minus 12. Louisville, minus 11. Minnesota is a minus 11 from their average. St. Mary's, minus 10. Delaware, minus 10. Alabama A&M, minus 9. Monmouth, minus 9. Abilene Christian, minus 9. Nebraska, minus 8.6. Houston, minus 7.48. And here's some teams that are very good away from home. Bowling Green, 14.19. Wright State, 11.14. Morgan State, 11.11. Cal State Fullerton, 10.98. Boston University, 10.57. Binghamton is a 10. NC State is 9.85. Richmond, 9.38. UMass, 9.2. Fordham, 8.99. Georgia Tech, very good away from home, 8.33. During tournament time, when you're looking at this, you might want to concentrate a little bit more on the bigger teams, obviously. But, anything above a 2 or a 3 is probably a good way to look at them advancing. I mean, use it as just a small part of your handicap. But some teams like Iowa's up there. Teams like Texas is up there for away from home. Marshall, if they make it, is up there. Marquette is up there. Penn State's actually up there, but they probably won't make it. Buffalo's up there if they win the MAC tournament. Memphis is up there as well. All right. Without further ado, let's bring on our first guest, Mr. Ross Benjamin from RBwins. Now, I'm very excited to welcome to the Odds Breakers a very successful and longtime handicapper, Mr. Ross Benjamin from RBwins.com. You can follow Ross on Twitter at RossBenjamin1 and on the OSGA YouTube channel. Ross, March Madness is upon us. How are you doing this week?
Oh, everything's great. The only thing I mind is when you say long-term or long-time handicapper, shows my age. Anyway, other than that, it's all good.
Well,
red hot lately in the NBA, off a 3-0 sweep last night. Also had a 10-star top play winner in college basketball last night on Villanova. And things are good. 68-43 with my last 111 with my college basketball 10-star top plays at 61%. And my NBA with that 3-0 sweep last night makes me 26-14, 64% with my last 40. So thank you for asking, Kiev.
Oh, well, that's a good time to ask then. Nice work, Ross. And don't worry about your age. People aren't buying from you for your...
Yeah, I look pretty good for my age, man.
And people aren't caring about your good looks there, Ross. We care about your experience here. So that's what's important, man.
Try to cash a ticket with your looks,
Yeah, that never works. I don't care how old you are. well, why don't you go ahead and tell our audience then a little bit about RBwins and some of the benefits that you offer.
Well, if you go to the website, I offer daily, weekly, and monthly and annual packages. I do guarantee my weekly and monthly packages that if you're not making a profit at the end of the subscription, I will extend your package until you do. The daily packages, those are for people who like to dabble in once in a while. I do not guarantee those, but again, that's RBwins.com. Been in business since 2003 and going strong, Kiev.
Oh, that's fantastic. I encourage everyone to check that out. And that's a long time to be in business. Great stuff here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your videos and podcasts? You have the Winner's Circle, some of the stuff that we discussed before on OSGA YouTube channel. What you got going on over there?
Well, I got some interesting stuff. I had you on yesterday. That was a very good show. You did a terrific job. And we picked some winners, right? And as far as college basketball, I think we went 3-0 with our picks yesterday in college basketball. And not bad. If you tuned in, you certainly made some money, hopefully. I also do the Winner's Circle podcast twice weekly. Once is an NBA edition. The other is a college basketball edition with longtime veteran Las Vegas handicapper Chip Chirimbus. Got pretty close to 7,000 subscribers at the YouTube channel, and I would encourage all of you to at least give it a try. It costs you absolutely nothing. And my goal, when you watch any of my videos, whether it be the Winner's Circle or with you, Kiev, or my solo videos, is to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. That's the goal. It's not always getting on and just giving out free picks. It's an education, too.
Absolutely.
And in the advent of all the legal sports gambling now in a lot of states, I know a lot of people out there are new to it, so I'm not out to take advantage of anybody. I'm out to teach them.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. And it is a great show. And I do thank you for being on it. We had a great show giving out some winners a few days back. Hopefully we can do the same today because we have a huge weekend coming up. But before we get into the individual games here, I'm going to ask you kind of something similar that you asked me. I'm going to ask you if you have an under-the-radar team that could make some noise in the NCAA tournament. If to recap some of my listeners, if they haven't watched this show that we did, I talked a little bit about Oklahoma State that I liked. You talked a little bit about Illinois. Now we're going to ask the same question again. Anything you like coming up that could possibly upset a team or make a good run in the NCAA tournament?
Well, Illinois is the number 4 rated team in the country, and they're coming off that blowout win at Michigan. So I really like them because of the odds. I think they're a good value. But to pick something under the radar, I think you need to look at a team like Arkansas. Not a lot of people talking about them right now, but boy, they're on a roll. And here's the thing, Kiev. It's very difficult as a non-conference opponent when you play a team like Arkansas because they're the type of team that could really make you squirm. What I mean by that is defensively, they're in your face all 40 minutes. They press, they play up-tempo, and sometimes it takes you a half to get adjusted to the speed of the game in which they play. Again, against Big 12 or SEC opponents, they're used to that because they play them. But against a non-conference opponent come tournament time, especially a team who's not used to playing at that type of pace, a team that averages maybe somewhere between 55 and 58 field goal attempts per game or less, they're going to be an awful tough out against teams like that.
100% quietly sneaking up to number 13 on KenPom. I think that this Arkansas team is the best team in the SEC, even though Alabama's ranked higher. What Eric Musselman's been doing over there is only ripping 7 wins in a row. They haven't lost since that Big 12 distraction against Oklahoma State. They haven't lost an SEC game since January 16th. I mean, this team is absolutely red hot, and their ball pressure, like you explained, is absolutely phenomenal. That's the kind of teams that you want to look for. They can play fast, but they play defense, number 13th in the country. Ball pressure, they frustrate other teams. Great idea on Arkansas there, and I might even take a look at them for their price for the SEC tournament next week.
Now, Bill Musselman, he's the former coach at Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That is correct.
Let's not forget, before he took the job at Arkansas, he got Nevada to the Elite Eight, very close, losing a 2-point defeat in the regional final that would have sent them to the Final Four. So he's a proven head coach, and NCAA tournament experience as a head coach and experience taking a team deep into the tournament, I think will pay dividends for Arkansas.
Yeah, they lost against Loyola, and when Loyola made that amazing run in 2018. Yeah. So, but not yet. He's been revered, and it was a great hire by Arkansas. So, 100% agree with you there. Great stuff. I'm going to give out Winthrop here as a team that could make some noise. I mean, they're minus 400 to win their tournament, and I think they're going to do that. So, I mean, unless something crazy happens, they only have one loss all year. They are hot, but they're also a good team. They really don't have a lot of vulnerabilities, really. Maybe a little bit on the free throw line, but I would hate to play Winthrop. I mean, they're ranked 104th on KenPom. I think they're like a top 60 team, really. The reason they haven't moved up is because the best team they got to play against was Furman, who they beat by 16 points. Winthrop's beaten people by margin consistently. They had one bad game against Asheville back in January, but since then, it's just they haven't really looked back here. I mean, if you're a team like a 6 seed, a 7 seed, something like that, I think it would suck to have to play Winthrop. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them in the Sweet 16, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, what are they, like 21-1 on the season? So their only downfall, I would say, let's put it this way, I wouldn't call it a downfall, but the only negative in the equation is their strength of schedule. They really haven't faced anybody out of conference that we could look back at and say, hey, look, they beat this team from the Big 12. They beat this team from the Big 10. They don't have the resume that, like some of the mid-majors who've had success and got to the Sweet 16 or beyond has had in recent past. But again, they're going to be a very difficult out. There's no better experience than winning experience. So this is a team that's going to be confident going into the NCAA tournament. You just have to hope they win their conference tournament because they're not going to get an at-large bid based on their resume.
That's right, they're not. And even with that one loss, the committee's not going to give it to them because there's just too much out there that's played better than top 90 teams. But I'm pretty. If you look at that conference, I mean the best team there is not even in the top 150. I don't think that they're going to have a problem getting there. So that's why I went that direction. But yes, obviously the caveat is they have to make it. But definitely wouldn't want to play them. Let's get into some big games then this weekend, starting with Friday. And Ross, I picked this game because there's a little bit of a situation here. Miami, Ohio versus Akron. I'm predicting the -6-ish. Total's going to be around 146. And I picked this game because this is a big game for Akron because if they win this game and Buffalo loses, they move up to a number 2 seed in the MAC tournament, okay? And it's a lot better than a 4 seed having to play the 5 team if you're a 2 seed getting to play the 7. And even if Buffalo does win, they still get the 3 seed there. They did beat Kent State a couple times this year already. So that's the reason, being tied with them, they would, jump them in seeds if Kent State wins. But either way, I see some motivation for them to do that here. I know they've been on a little bit of a slide here. Miami of Ohio, I don't see any motivation. And the thing about this game is they can't really improve much. They're in already, right? They're in their conference tournament. There's only 8 teams in this tournament, I believe. And they can't really hurt their seed. They're either going to be a 7, or an 8 seed. But here's the thing. In order for them to drop to a 7, an 8 seed, Ball State would have to beat Toledo. And at Toledo, I don't even think decent teams can beat Toledo, right? At Ball State, they could lose this game and they're still going to be a 7 seed. So I'm not, from a motivational aspect, I see a lot more motivation for Akron, trying to improve their seed. And it's a pure motivational handicap for me. I know they've been on a 3-game losing skid, but I think they get it together against this easier MAC team finally at home, playing their last game at home. So I'm going to lay the -6 here. What are your thoughts?
It's an intriguing matchup in a couple of facets. You mentioned the 3-game losing streak, but here's a positive out of that 3-game losing streak. Their last game they played at Buffalo. They were down 14 at the half, and they came back in the second half and ended up losing by 2. So they can take some momentum from that. Now, if you look at Miami of Ohio, yes, I agree with the motivation factor favoring Akron, but they've been a pretty good road team of late. As a matter of fact, Miami of Ohio's gone 4-0 straight up and 3-0 and 1 against the spread in their last 4 on the road. However, the big however comes in because Akron did defeat Miami of Ohio earlier this season as a covered as a 4-point favorite. I don't have that score in front of me, but it's a really tough call for me. I know what you're saying, the -6. This is probably going to be a game I stay away from, but it certainly would look to me like Miami of Ohio would be the public play. So that probably is going to move the line a little bit. I only see that because the general public, without insulting anybody, tends to look at what's happened recently and not consider any other factors. So if you look at the fact that Miami has been hot and Akron has not, some people out there will think that they're getting a good value on the underdog. Yet I tend to be the contrarian guy and would tend to agree with you. This is a good spot for Akron to bounce back here.
Yeah, I think so too. And Miami, Ohio, you're right. They've been a pretty good road team, and you're right. They did lose and Akron covered. Akron covered that game at Miami, Ohio. But the teams that Miami, Ohio just beat: Northern Illinois ranking 336, Central Michigan ranking 263, Western Michigan ranking 262. Those away games, anybody could have beat those guys, they did lose at home then to Kent State, and then they got Bowling Green, who has been extremely inconsistent this year. Bowling Green. I don't know what's wrong with them, but this is a spot for Akron. So maybe from what you said, we wait a little bit. Maybe the public gets involved, and maybe we can get a 5. If we can get a 5, I'd feel even more comfortable laying this. So good stuff on that one. Let's move into.
Here's another interesting point too. Miami. Since they lost to Akron earlier this season, they played 2 games this season where they had same-season revenge against a conference opponent. They lost by 24 at Buffalo and by 12 at Toledo. So they haven't responded well the second time around when they lost to teams in their first meeting.
And that's a great thing to look at. I'm glad you brought that up because people do tend to look towards the dog, and usually that they should have some data points. But if they're not covering in revenge spots, in spots where they already played, that team's not for real. So great point.
And another point, Akron. I look at teams' home court, how strong their home court is, and Akron has gone 39-6 straight up in their last 45 home games. Kiev.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. 45-6 in their last home games, which is huge.
39-6 in their last 45.
All right. Well, that's a great point, too. You always have to look at what they've been doing at home. I know that that Akron is on that skid, and that's kind of why I want to get on them. There's more value on them now. They did lose to Bowling Green, which I said's been inconsistent, but before that, they haven't lost a home game all year. Loving the spot here. You even talked me into it more. Let's move into Saturday, and we have a big game, and it's a Big Ten game. Indiana versus Purdue. Purdue laying about 6-ish. Total about 134 is where I think it's going to be around. And you and I both liked Purdue against my Badgers, and that ended up cashing. And now Purdue's going to play like an in-state rivalry here. And I want to see what your thoughts are on this one first.
Well, Purdue has owned Indiana. As a matter of fact, they've beaten them 8 straight times, and they've covered 6 of those 8. Purdue is also 5-0 straight up and 4-0-1 against the spread in their last 5 at home against Indiana. And this is a Purdue team that's won and covered each of their last 4 games overall, including that 4-point win over that you just alluded to over number 24 Wisconsin in their previous game. While on the other hand, Indiana 0-4 straight up in ATS in their last 4, Kiev, and 3 of those 4 losses came against unranked teams. So it's hard to play 3 out of 4 against unranked teams in the Big Ten, but Indiana did, and and they failed miserably in doing so. So certainly seemed to be Purdue looks like the side here. Yet I want to see when that line opens, and I want to see general public action before I make any kind of move on this contest.
Yeah, definitely want to check that out as well. Indiana should be desperate, and great points upon Purdue owning them as far as a win or loss. Right, they won them, but not necessarily against the spread. So, Purdue's got to be motivated. And the reason that is because they still might drop to a 5 seed. And if they lose this game and Ohio State beats Illinois at home, which is going to be the next game we talk about because there's a really interesting angle in that one. So Purdue, the double bye in the Big Ten is huge because the Big Ten is such a deep league. And as we talked about last time, Ross, it's just so many good teams in there. 9 or 10 teams are going to make the tournament, probably 9. But that doesn't mean that Penn State and Minnesota are bad teams. Minnesota's hurt right now, and Penn State just cleaned their clock yesterday. But, Purdue is going to want that bye. Now, I have the score 69-63. So my thought, I have a lean to the under on this one, just because I think, Purdue's going to step up their defense. Indiana's going to step their defense up as well, being it's so important. I'm not sure if Indiana can even play their way back into the tournament because their record's pretty bad right now.
Yeah, they're 12-13. It'd be hard for them to get an at-large, you would think. The only thing in their favor is you're playing in a conference with how many teams are in the top 25? You got Illinois, Michigan, Iowa in the top 5 alone, and then Ohio State number 7, and the list goes on in the Big Ten. It's a very strong conference, but still, you have at 12-13. Are they really worthy of consideration?
Right, exactly, and that's possibly cutting it down even a little bit more if Michigan State can't get in either. You got some bubble teams in the Big Ten just because they've been beating themselves up. But you're right, the committee's going to look at the Big Ten as being extremely strong anyway. The problem with the Big Ten is where do you draw the line and let other teams in? Indiana's ranked number 39 in the nation, so that's not a bad team. It's just that,
Yeah, and it's through the analytics of KenPom, correct? I mean, so, and I follow KenPom religiously like yourself, and I put a lot of stock in that. But at the end of the day, the committee looks at getting the best teams in the tournament, and I'm not so sure that Indiana's worthy of an at-large berth. But we'll see. It depends on how they finish, too. I mean, look, you can't go on a 4-game losing streak at the end of the season like they're currently on and then lose the 3 unranked teams within your conference when considering all the ranked teams you got in there. So that certainly didn't help their resume whatsoever.
Yeah, the Michigan State losses hurt. The Iowa games were great. Somehow they got Iowa twice. Iowa's in a little bit of a lull in their season. They were cold. And this Purdue win would say something for them. So that's why I think they will be motivated here. But moving on to the next game, and just like you, I don't think I have a play on this one for sure. I'm leaning to the under. But moving on to the next game, this one's big because it has to do with this game. Illinois versus Ohio State. And Ohio State's going to be about +1. The total on this game is going to be around 152. Now, Indiana versus Purdue is the segue to this game because if Purdue loses this game, that's going to give Ohio State all the motivation here to come back into that 4th seed, that very important 4th seed. Indiana Purdue's playing at noon Eastern time. And this game's at 2. And I can guarantee you those kids and that coach, they might say, don't look at the score. Someone's going to know. They're going to know if Purdue won that game. So it's really simple to me. You have to assume that Io DeSumo was not playing. I don't think he plays. There's no reason for him to play with that broken nose yet. He can sit all the way out until next Friday with another week to heal. Why put him in here? They're not improving their seed. They're already a double bye. Illinois has nothing to worry about here. So just that makes me look at the under with no Ayo Dosunmu. But, if Ohio State is in this game and possibly getting a double bye, I'm probably going to play Ohio State just because of the spot and the situation here, how much they need this more than Illinois. And Illinois has been hot. They just beat up Michigan. They beat Wisconsin. They didn't miss a beat without Dosunmu, but it's got to, at some point, the kids are going to want some rest here. So in that situation, if Purdue loses, which probably won't happen, then I'll look to Ohio State. But what I'm looking at is the under, because even if Purdue loses and Ohio State wants to step it up, they're going to step up their defense. And this is going to come out high. I mean, Ken Pom says 155, but we both know it's not going to be that high. I wrote 152 and as a total. And this is just the perfect game where Illinois slows it down with no Dosunmu. And obviously Ohio State decides to finally play some defense because they have not been playing defense. When teams go in losing streaks, they step up their defense. And this is an underplay for me, and I like it all the way at least down to 150 here probably for 3 stars. So that's a free play for me. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's virtually moving the game like you alluded to, number one. And you got an Ohio State team that's lost 3 in a row, failed to cover in each of those contests, and that preceded by a 7-game win streak in which they beat some pretty damn good teams. Highly ranked teams at that, if you look at their resume. Now, having said that, Illinois coming off that huge win at Michigan in which they just destroyed the Wolverines, the number 2 Wolverines, 76-53 on the road without their leading scorer, Dosunmu. So, excuse me. So, from a layman standpoint, how can't you like Illinois, right? Well, look, here's the thing with sports betting. If something looks too good to be true, it normally is. And this, to me, looks like a spot for Ohio State to step up to the plate and come up with a big effort. Also, they did beat Illinois on the road in mid-January, 87-81, so they have confidence in that regard, and that's with Dosunmu in the lineup. So I think I'm going to like Ohio State in this spot, and I may like them big.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're leaning the same way on this one. Great points there. And yes, absolutely. If it's too good to be true, then start looking the other way. 100%. That's the way to be successful.
I always say, think like a bookmaker. And if you do that, you're one step ahead. I think a lot of bettors out there, the biggest fault they have is they'll see a line and think they're smarter than the bookmaker. How could this team be only +1? They've lost 3 games in a row. Illinois just beat Michigan. That's the mindset of a lot of people. And the bookmakers take advantage of that short memory that bettors have. It's always about what happened recently. It's not about the big picture with them. So, and that's no disrespect to anybody because, 99% of society doesn't put the time and effort into sports handicapping like we do.
That's right.
So, again, when I see a situation like this, if it smells like a rat and walks like a rat, it's a rat. And I think this is a trap play, and I think the Ohio State Buckeyes will come up big in this situation.
That's right. And even if Purdue wins this game, they still want to get off that ugly streak. So good stuff there. You might have talked me into playing Ohio State anyway, but I'm still going to be playing this under. Let's move on to Sunday. And you talked a little bit about this Houston team on our last show on your YouTube channel. Let's talk a little bit more about the American Athletic Conference. We have Memphis versus Houston, and this is a pretty big game. And scratching my head, you'd think that Houston's the best team the top ranked team, I guess, in their own conference. Well, they're better than Wichita State, but Wichita State only has 2 losses here. Wichita State has a pretty easy game coming up. You have Houston and Memphis pretty much sitting in the 2 and 3. What are your thoughts on this one?
You look at, again, I'm going to refer to Ken Pom. These teams are 2 of the best defensive teams in the country. Right now, the Memphis Tigers are an adjusted defense, which means, folks, how many points you allow per 100 possessions, Memphis is number one in the country in that category at 86.1 points allowed per 100 possessions, while Houston is number 4 overall in that category at 87.9. And folks, we're talking about 1-4 with 351 Division I teams included. So these are really, really good defensive teams. Now, having said that, I could foresee a total in this game somewhere, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this because you like to look ahead and make your own number. But I'm looking at something around 128 to 130 as a total in this game. And it's people don't like to bet the under. And sometimes you have to make that uncomfortable pick. And I could be honest with you. I think a total that low would be justified in this contest. Yet, and I do make uncomfortable picks a lot of times, but there's one cardinal rule I have. I don't bet games under the total if they're 129.5 or less. There's just too many miscellaneous things that can go wrong. Again, this is going to be a tough call. What do you have? What do you project the line would be in this game?
Well, Ken Pom has 132, and I think it's going to be probably around 130.5 is what I'm thinking it's going to be at, because there's going to be some people hitting the under. And they have Houston minus 12, and maybe it's going to be between 10 and 12. I lean towards the under right now, and I was gonna see your thoughts on it too. The pace is interesting in this because it's somewhat of a pace war, because you have Memphis ranking in the top 33 in pace, even though they have the number 1 defense. We'll talk about that in a second. And Houston ranks 308th. Much slower team. But Houston's at home, so I expect them to control the pace a little bit. Both teams, we have to assume Wichita State's going to beat 160th ranked South Florida in their last game. That's going to make them regular season American Athletic Conference champions. But there's not a prize for second place, and these teams are probably going to be on the same side of their conference bracket and eventually have to play each other before their favorites against Wichita State, which I project to happen, whichever one of these teams. But these teams played each other last year, Ross, and neither game got past 122 points. Yeah. So it's what you said, that defense. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that Memphis's defense is really number 1 in the nation. I looked at their schedule. There's absolutely no way for me to know that when this conference absolutely stinks on offense as it is, and they're so inconsistent. You're telling me that they have a better defense than Baylor. You're telling me they have a better defense than Michigan. I don't think so. There's no way I can buy that. But what I do buy is that their defense is good with respect to this conference. I have Houston 69 and Memphis 60 here, and I think Memphis is going to get a little frustrated. Memphis has they're prone to turn over the ball. I think they ranked 320th on turnovers offense. They're just letting teams, they're really sloppy with the ball, and that's because they play so fast. I think Houston's going to get a few of those and probably capitalize. The question is when Houston, are they going to let off the gas here? I lean to the under, and I'm going to lean to Memphis if it's above 10, but I'm not sure if I'm going to play it.
Yeah, you make some interesting points. Memphis plays at a very high pace, fast tempo, I should say, up-tempo type of basketball. Yet they're ranked very highly in the defensive ratings at KenPom. Now, let me remind you, folks, those are just statistics. Those aren't passing the eye test. As Kiev just alluded to, you have to look at a team's strength of schedule as well. Although I will say a team that plays at that type of tempo and gives up that amount of points, which is very low per 100 possessions, that's impressive in itself, no matter who you're playing. Now, Houston, on the other hand, plays at a real methodical, slow pace. And I would look more toward how these teams' defensive field goal percentages. And here's my thoughts in this regard, and I'm going to attack your alma mater here a little bit. For years, Wisconsin was always in the top 10 in defensive scoring. It just seems like year in and year out, you look at Wisconsin, they're giving up anywhere from 58 to 62 points per game, and everybody labels them as a great defensive team. Well, I'm not so sure that's always the case, because sometimes teams are overrated defensively, and a couple of those Wisconsin teams were, in my opinion, because of the methodical pace that they play at, which limits the opposition's possessions. And then if you get a team that likes to go fast like Memphis, that could frustrate an opponent like that because they want to speed the tempo up, and this team is just hard to speed up, meaning Houston or Wisconsin or whatever you have. So that's kind of things I look at, not so much the points per game allowed, but I like to look at their field goal percentage defense and the offensive pace in which they play at before I'm willing to label a team as a number one defensive team in the country. And it goes hand in hand to what you're saying. Basically, what you're telling me and what you're telling the people out there, which I agree 100% on, is sometimes you have to trust your eyes. And like you said, is Memphis a better defensive team than Baylor, who plays in a Big 12? Is Memphis a better defensive team than Michigan, who plays in a conference with 7 ranked teams in the top 25? Absolutely not. So this is a tough call. I'm going to wait till the line comes out in this game. Like I said, Kiev, it would all lean toward the under, but it's just my cardinal rule. I don't play unders if it's somewhere like 129.5 or less, and I'm not so sure just because it's 130.5 or 131, that's going to determine my thinking in that regard as well.
Great points, and don't worry about ripping on Wisconsin because I've been you're
a big Wisconsin guy, right? So
I've been making money off fading Wisconsin, so I'm betting against them lately. So
my question is this, Kiev, from following Wisconsin basketball for years, and I'm not implying that you're not professionally unbiased, okay? What I'm implying is you have a good handle on that team. Do you agree that some of those teams that had those low-scoring defensive numbers weren't as good as the statistics show defensively?
100%, and I've always said that as well, just like you said it. When a team plays slow basketball, it frustrates the other side because they're not getting they're expending all their their lungs and their breath on defense. They're sitting there running around. They'd rather be just driving the ball to the hoop, and they're getting frustrated. And especially if an offensive rebound happens, you got Wisconsin sitting there dribbling it around, swinging it around, and it's a low-scoring game, so they look a lot better on defense than what they might really be. Wisconsin has lost ugly in the same way. They've lost scores like 56 to 51 just because they play so slow. It doesn't mean they're always stopping the other team. They're just letting the clock run out faster. So that's very true. What you said about Memphis reminds me a little bit about VCU the last couple of years because they're always a higher paced team that were ranked really high on defense. And I got to tell you, betting them frustrated me a little bit because sometimes their pace just took the other games over. And then sometimes, I look at their pace, you bet the over, and then their defense is just so good. The other team didn't score much. So they eventually, run the clock out. So very hard to bet on these. And, what's funny about this situation, I love basketball. You love basketball. We don't have to bet on every game. That's our advantage over the books. The books have to put out in every game. We get to dive deep into everyone and decide which one's best for us. This might just be a game where we enjoy it with a bowl of popcorn.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And lessons learned for future games to come with both of these teams, especially when it comes to the NCAA tournament, to try to get an idea now how they would fare against Power 5 conference teams, which they're bound to see probably in Memphis's case in the first round. So I'd be really interested to see how Memphis plays in this game more than Houston. I think Houston, I mentioned this on our podcast that we did on the OSGA YouTube channel yesterday, that I think Houston's one of those teams they're bored. They're bored playing in the American Athletic Conference. And it shows. I mean, you got a team that's lost 3 games all year, ranked number 9 in the country, and they lose to East Carolina. East Carolina's gone 1-8 in their last 9 games, and their only win came against Houston as a 16.5-point underdog. If those teams played 100 times, Houston would win 99 of them, and that was the one time that was the one time they would have lost. And so, again, if you're going to look inside your conference schedule, you could certainly poke holes at Houston. But I think when they step up in competition in class, that they're going to be up to the challenge. I really do.
Yeah, me too. And that's why I have a slight lean to Memphis. But just like we said, might just be worth watching so we can get a handle on how Memphis is going to handle these better teams in the NCAA tournament. Ross, do you have any other games or plays that you'd like to discuss?
No, not really. Again, I'm one of those guys that takes it day by day, especially in college basketball, because like today, attacking a schedule today takes me a few hours, So I just don't have the time working on my own to be looking 2-3 days in advance. I might see a matchup that I look forward to, but until the actual line comes out, even though we know, and then to see the betting patterns. I very seldom side with the public. There's a reason why Las Vegas has sports books. It's not because the bettors win. So, and the guys that win in our industry or professional sports bettors, 1 out of every 100 people makes a profit for an entire year that bets on sports. And that's a proven fact. So that tells me that the novice bettors out there and the people who do it recreationally, or the people who go, this team's better than that team, or Team A beat Team B, and Team B beats Team C, so Team A should kill Team C. It's just not that easy. So in terms of, I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, Kiev, but I very seldom look way ahead when it comes to college basketball especially. And then in the NBA, you don't look way ahead because who knows who's going to play on any particular day. You get a team like the Clippers that are resting players, Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie's resting today, Harden's the only one of the 3. It's just too hard in this COVID era in particular to look way ahead and try to zero in on a matchup because of player availability and all the uncertainty in which we're dealing with as a country.
100%. I agree with that. And that is why I always say to look for our articles on the odds breakers, because even if we talk about a game, it still has to match up with the line. So our free picks come out every single day. Friday and Saturday is when you're going to get the games, and Sunday, if there is a play that we talked about. Ross, where can our listeners find your valuable information and your plays?
Again, RBwins.com. Right now, today, we're recording on Thursday, and I do have a NBA 10-star top play up for sale right now, as well as a game that just is about an hour old right now, and I haven't looked at it. I actually took Dayton against Rhode Island and laid the 3.5. I'm not sure how I'm doing there. But in any event, college basketball, it's a great time of year, March. Go with an experienced handicapper. Go with somebody who has a proven track record, and I certainly fit both of those molds. And my NBA has been red hot, 26-14 with my last 40, including a 3-0 sweep last night. Had some nice plays there. I will say about the NBA, Kiev, now that you asked me if I wanted to bring anything up, no lead is safe in the NBA this year. There's been 9 comebacks this year where teams overcame a 20-point deficit in a game. So it makes it awfully difficult in the NBA. But I've sort of treaded right along here and been making a profit. So RBwins.com. And folks, don't forget, go to my YouTube channel. It's the OSGA YouTube channel. That's O as in Oscar, S as in Sam, G as in Gary, and A as in Adam. And subscribe. You'll be notified immediately upon me publishing any of my sports betting videos there, including the one with Kiev I'm going to do once a week now. my winner's circle with Chip Chirimbus, and also my solo free pick videos. It costs you absolutely nothing, and that's OSGA YouTube channel. And again, folks, you can find me at my personal website, RBwins.com.
Great stuff by Ross Benjamin. Make sure you guys check him out at RBwins.com. Ross, thank you so much for giving us your time to talk about these big games.
Enjoyed being on the show, and thank you for having me.
Now it's time for a little UFC with Cub Fan Danny. And now I'm very excited to welcome back one of our favorite guys to talk with for our UFC and MMA fun, Mr. Cub Fan Danny. You can follow him on Twitter at Cub Fan Danny. Danny, it's March Madness, but UFC 259 looks like a little madness itself with 3 title fights, my man.
It might be the greatest fight of all time, right? It's going to be the greatest fight of the year. There's so many fights on here. I'm so excited. You don't even realize how excited I am. My head's going to explode here, Kiev.
Oh, man, 100%, dude. I can't believe they piled on 3 awesome fights on this card.
Not 1, not 2, but we're talking about 3.
It's amazing, man. And yeah, you have to get this. It $65, whatever it is. It's well worth it. I mean, you got Israel.
Yeah. It's even better than that. You get it you buy $90. You're going to get ESPN Plus for the entire year. This is a great fight coming up, and you're going to get ESPN for the entire year. I would totally do this fight, guys.
I watch ESPN Plus all the time because they have all the small college basketball games on. They got sports that you can't normally watch. It's a good deal to get this. So, and this is the time to do it because you got Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. And what amazing main event here, man. We got my girl, Amanda Nunes, Danny, against Megan Anderson. I know you love giving me so much crap about making money off her. And Aljamain Sterling against Peter Yan. That's your 3 title fights, but we have a nice undercard too, don't we?
Each one of those are worth the title fight them on their own, right? But we're talking about 3 title fights in one night?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Listen, Dana White should be paying me right now for promoting this whole card because it is fantastic.
Yeah, the undercard, there's prelims for the prelims, man.
We're talking about Dominic Cruz, who was a guy who was a champion, right? And he could have been a guy that's handling the entire fight card, right? And he's in the undercard.
Yeah, so he's on the undercard.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait. Let's get right into this thing then, man. It's madness in the UFC. And, I was looking, I didn't get through the whole thing. I mean, there's just so many fights going on here this weekend. You can just check out them on ESPN Fight Center. ESPN does a pretty good job actually putting them all together. But there's 6 early prelims. 6 early prelims. Then you get to the normal prelims, and there's 4. And then you get to the main card, and there's 5 huge fights with the 3 title fights. So I'm not even halfway. I'm not even a third of the way done.
Kiev, I didn't know where to start, brother. I didn't know where to start. Well,
let's start. The early prelims probably. I'm going to dive into that tomorrow, but let's start just a little bit looking at some of these preliminary fights here. And I got to tell you, these prices are pretty good. It's hard for me to find an angle. I found a few angles to discuss, a few plays to give out, but I want to just talk about some of this. Joseph Benevides versus Askarov here. And I mean, this fight's pretty close. Askar's like a minus 125. Benevides is plus 105 here. Man, I looked at both of these fighters, and I kind of like them both, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I didn't watch all of the past ones. We've seen them fight before, but my first inclination was Askarov here. And I mean, he's more hungry. He's younger here, I believe. It's the flyweight class, so it's probably going the distance, most likely. But Joseph Benevides has done some damage himself here. So the fight's not exactly off in price, in my opinion. Now, Joseph was fantastic, and he's lost to Davison Figueiredo, right? The champ.
Figueiredo, yeah.
Yeah, the champ. And so, I mean, in my opinion, the fight's close to a price, but I was thinking about taking a shot at Eskar because I thought maybe he should be more minus 150. Do you have any quick thoughts on this one?
I do, right? So Benevides probably fought the toughest guy ever at that weight class, Davison Figueiredo. The guy is absolutely amazing, and we're talking about Figueiredo. Listen, I think he might be the pound for pound best fighter in all of UFC. So anybody that's going to fight him at that 125, listen, you're going to get your face kicked in. If he's at Figueiredo, if he's at 135, you're going to get your face kicked in. So I'm going to give a lot of props over the Benevides, right? So listen, to this fight, I look at this fight going the complete distance, right? So Benevides, his last 7 fights that have gone the distance, he's 6-1. 6-1. That's huge, right? And he's fought some big competition here, right? So we're talking about Eskar, who his last 3 fights have gone in the UFC, have gone to the decision. This fight is going to go into a decision. So if you're talking about Benevides and Eskar fighting, they're going to go to a decision. Anything can happen what's inside the judges, but Benevides is such a good fighter. He's been fighting the top guys for such a long time. This going to the decision, you got to look at Benevides at plus 260. Plus 260. Anything could happen inside when as soon as the referee, the judges pick the fight, and Benevides is 6-1 in the last 7. You got to look at Benevides at plus 260. I really like him here at this spot.
Well, I mean, Eskar hasn't lost. He has that one push with Brandon Moreno, which actually pushed with Figueiredo anyway. So yeah, I mean, that's I think that's his only notch is pushing with Moreno, but he's only had 3 UFC fights. The other ones were the lower, ACB, right? So,
yeah.
So it's not like we know a lot.
Against Pantaggio, I absolutely love the guy. He beat Tim Elliott. I absolutely love the guy. But again, those went the distance. Kid, you don't know what's going to happen when those judges are looking at the fight, right? And Benevides is one of the best guys ever at that weight class. You got to look at that guy and give that guy the props and say that guy's going to get a lot of respect with the judges. Listen, you're getting plus 265, right, to win inside the distance. Plus 260, you can't walk away from that, right? If you're thinking that fight's going the distance, you can't walk away from plus 260.
So by points or by decision, plus 260 is what you're giving.
Plus 260, you can't walk away from that because this fight is going the distance, right?
Well, the price on it to go the distance, I believe, was minus 250, something like that. Am I right? I'm going to go to Best Fight Odds, which is a great site, by the way, to compare books. It's got DraftKings, FanDuel, 5 Dimes, Bovada, Sports Interaction, Bet Online. It's got just a ton of books, ton of popular books that people have. And fight goes to decision is, of course, it's being tough on me. It's minus 195. It must be because
that's what they're expecting, Kiev.
Yeah, but I thought it'd be bigger than that. I almost want to take that. I thought that it would be more than that because these guys are so light and such great fighters here. I might take that 2 for 1. Lay $100, get 50, something like that. Maybe I'll do that. And I know you like so I'm saying it's going to go to decision, and you're just going to pick the winner at decision at the plus 265 is kind of what it sounds like.
That's what I'm looking at, right? And I like Benevides a lot, right? But look, he got his teeth kicked in by one of the best fighters ever. I still have to respect the guy, right? So if he's that good, and kid, going to the distance, last 7, 6-1, how can you go against those odds?
Well, I think the thing is that Eskar doesn't go to the distance much. I think, as a matter of fact, he only went to decision 2 times out of his 12 wins. And so
that, and here's where I'll turn that around on you, right? So his last 3 fights in the UFC all have gone to decision.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Win.
Yeah,
So,
and that's why I like it, and that's why I like the decision at the -195. So I'll put a star on that. What the hell? I'll put a play on that, and you go ahead and take Joseph Benevides. I agree. I can't punish him either for losing to Figueiredo, so I just can't. Right?
Figueiredo's a maniac, bro. He's the best. I'm scared of that guy, and I'm 2 times his size, right? And I've done a little fighting, and that guy scares me to death, right?
All right. Well, we pounded this one. Let's go to the next one here. I looked at the Kyler Phillips Song Yadong fight. -160. I think that price is correct. I think we're going to skip over this one here. To be honest with you, I see a chance Kyler Phillips wins. He seems like he's a pretty good fighter. He's got a lot of wins on his belt. Song Yadong's pretty hungry, but he's not perfect by any means. So I'm going to move on to that one. Don't you have something on? Do you have something on the Casey Kennedy Dominic Cruz?
Listen, I love Dominic Cruz. He's such a fantastic fighter. He's really fun to watch. He goes in, he goes out, right? Casey Kennedy is such a young guy. Casey Kennedy goes in. I don't know if Casey Kennedy fought a guy like Dominic Cruz, but Dominic Cruz is old, right? He fought 2016. His body is brittle. Then he came back in 2020. He went for a title fight. He lost. I did not like that at all. I was really disappointed in Cruz, and it made me think, is he even worth putting money on anymore, Kiev? I don't know.
I mean, his record's great, but he's only had 7.
But they're all great guys. They're all fantastic fighters. He's fought the best of the best.
Well, Dillashaw, yeah.
He's brittle. And that's why he hasn't fought a lot. And Casey Kennedy is a newer guy, but Dominic Cruz is an older guy. I see why it's -130 plus 110. I see the value on Kenny right now just because Cruz hasn't fought that much, right? And he's older. I can see the value on -130 because the guy is coming up as opposed to the guy going down.
Yeah, he is coming up through the ranks here, and he has that one loss and a decision to Dvalishvili. But that's it. And Dvalishvili's very good, Mirab Dvalishvili. So I agree with you there. So I'm going to put that as a potential one for Casey Kenny. Cruz did lose a couple at the end here, and 35 years old, pretty old to be, finally getting into the UFC. If you look at his record, it's just a ton of wins. Don't get me wrong, a ton of wins, but it just took him forever to get into the UFC. So I find that very interesting. It's funny. He fought Joseph Benevides back in 2009 and won.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, listen, Kiev. There's 875 fighters on the UFC roster. This 125, I think it's 125 or 135 pound weight class has just started here in the past few years, right? So when we're talking about UFC fighters, we're talking about a guy like Dominic Cruz, who is a Hall of Fame fighter, who is fantastic. But he is brittle as brittle can be, right? And now that he's getting much older, I can't see him being the guy that he was, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. What I do like about him, he goes left and right. He's not up and back. He's not north and south. He's east and west, right? And most guys don't get to see east and west guys, and he's really, really difficult to gauge. But again, he's older, right? He's not the same guy he was 8 years ago. So I can't put confidence in doing anything with
right.
Cruz, unless you're going to go the distance and pick Cruz, because anything could happen with the judges.
Yeah, and this one's most likely going to decision too. I think the decision price on this one -245. Yeah, I mean lightweight. Casey Kenny's got the striking. He's a better striker. So, well,
Yeah.
So maybe minus 130 is not too bad. We'll think a little bit more into this one. What about this fight here? Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rukkich. And Rukkich is good, but Thiago's been there forever. I mean, we watched a ton of Thiago fights, right?
He's one of the staples, right? When you talk about UFC and you say Santos, people go, "Oh, I love the guy. He's got the Thor hammer on his chest that's tattooed on there." He's one of the staples of UFC, right? And Alexander, he's the guy that's up and coming. He's the guy that's got the hype behind him, Kiev. And Santos is the guy coming down. And I always say, here's somebody, when you're looking at fights, take the guy that has been there a while, has got his back against the wall, and pick the guy that's has his back against the wall, and that's Santos. But in this fight, Kiev, listen, I'm going to take some hype here, and I'm going to go with some hype machine here, and I think that Alexander is actually going to win this fight by a TKO. So right now, he's a minus 157, but if you take him as a TKO, that's a plus 240. That's some fantastic value from a guy that actually fought in a main event, and now he's coming up. And I have a feeling that the UFC is saying, hey, you want to fight for a title? You better knock some people out. We're going to give you Santos. If he knocks Santos out, he's going to be jumping up in the rankings up to 1 or 2, 3. That's where he needs to be at. Listen, if you can knock somebody out, especially a guy like Santos, that's right where you need to be at a plus 240. That's what you should be doing. That's what I'm going to be taking.
I kind of disagree with that. And the reason that is because you look at Santos's last 3 fights. John Jones, can't punish him for that. Glover Teixeira, can't punish him for that one either, really. It was a submission, a rear chokehold, but he did go the distance with John Jones. But Jan Blachowicz, our main event, his last loss was against Thiago Santos back in 2019. Two years ago, 25 months ago, And so here's the thing. Rukkich, he hasn't beaten anybody, really. I guess Jimmy Manoa's all right. He lost to Volkan Oezdemir, and then he beats Anthony Smith. And then if you look before that, okay, Souza, bum. I don't know. He hasn't really fought anybody. So you're looking at this guy with a minus money, and he hasn't faced nearly the competition that Thiago has. So I'm going to disagree with you, and I'll pick Thiago to win. But maybe, Danny, the better fight or the better price would be the fight doesn't start under round 3, or doesn't go to decision. The fight doesn't go to decision, and you probably lay a little bit of juice for that. But I can see a knockout here by either one.
The only thing I'll tell you, Kiev, is I absolutely love you, and we're both past the age of 37.
You had to tell people that, didn't you?
Well, listen, that makes it seem like we're not kids, right? But we're both past the age of 37. Oof, 37.
We're Alexi's age, buddy.
Yeah. Listen, when I'm hearing 37 and you lost a bunch of fights in a row, at some point it's time to hang it up. And I love Thiago. Listen, my family comes from Brazil. I'm rooting for this guy. But at age 37, that's where I am throwing my hands up and saying, I don't know if I can handle 37.
All right. Well, we'll make it a lunch bet then, my man. And I think I might be playing this one. So just for the listeners out there, we'll see. Next fight here. Let's go into one of the main events, my man. Well, one of the title fights here. Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan. And holy cow, man. I mean, it's been bouncing around here. I saw minus 110s. It looks like Peter Yan's now minus 115. Woo! This is going to be a good one, man. These guys are number 1 and number 2 in their Bam Tam weight class at 135, Danny. What do you got? What do you got for me?
Dude, I really like Aljamain. I really like him. If you didn't know, Kiev, I lived in Long Island for about 5 years, right? So I have a little bit of my heart is in Long Island, and that's where Aljamain fights out of. And I really like him a lot, right? But he's an outside fighter. Peter Yan is a guy that fights on the inside. So unless Aljamain fights on the outside, I can't see him being Peter Yan. Because Peter Yan is inside, outside, inside, outside. He is such a complete fighter, right? I really, really, really like him a lot, right, in this fight. So I don't have to go deep. I don't have to say this guy's going to win in round 3. I don't have to say this guy's going to win by a decision. At minus 115, I am okay in taking Peter Yan and winning this fight. Even though, we've got all this hype coming in with Aljamain, I'm okay with minus 115 straight up at Peter Yan, and I'm not going to worry how he's going to win the fight. That's how I'm going to take it.
This fight's been tough. And every time I talk myself into Peter Yan, I look at Aljamain, and I feel like too much is being held against him for that knee cross he got from Marlon Moraes, right? And it happened, and he got caught. He was really cocky that fight. Was kind of a jackass, right? It
wasn't good.
No, it wasn't good. But he has a couple losses before that, too. And this is back in 2016, 2017. He's definitely improved as a fighter here. But, gun to the head, it's Peter Yan for me. But at the same time, I think this fight's going to decision, man.
Yeah.
It's these guys weigh 135.
Yep.
It's going to be a 5-round fight, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's a title fight. It's going to be 5 rounds. But, besides that one knee, he's went the distance every time or won. 9 decisions Aljamain's won, 2 decisions he's lost, but at least it was decision there. If you bet it goes to decision, you get plus 120. I might not have to pick a side on this one. And Peter Yan obviously has been fantastic. He hasn't lost since he fought against Magomedov way back in 2016. But,
and that was a split decision. Kiev, here's the thing with Peter Yan, right? So he won with TKO punches against one of the greatest of all time, a UFC Hall of Famer, Jose Aldo, who I lost a lot of money on, by the way. But Jose Aldo, right?
Right.
Or Uriah Faber, who's older, but UFC legend. He knocked him out. But Jimmy Rivera, who is a beast, right? Who's got some major huevos. John Dotson, another guy that's got some major cachet here in the UFC. And those guys are tough. But look, Jose Aldo, it was the 5th round, almost the end of the fight. It was Uriah Faber, almost the end of the fight. You're Jimmy Rivera. So listen, I love what you're looking at when you're saying it's going to go the distance. I love looking at that and saying that's a complete angle. Don't look at TKOs. Don't look at submissions. How far did they get into that fight? I absolutely love what you're thinking right there.
All right, cool. So safe. I think you're a little bit safer on that one, but I kind of like what you're giving with Peter Yan. Like I said, gun to the head, it'd be Peter Yan for me. And he did beat Aldo pretty well that whole fight, right?
He beat him up. He did.
And Aldo's a damn good fighter. So
one of the best ever.
Yeah. Decision. Kev, don't do it. Just bet the decision.
Yeah.
That's got to keep telling myself. Well, next fight, Danny, and you know who my girl is, Amanda Nunes. Huge fight here, fighting Megan Anderson. I don't know if it's huge, but it's for the featherweight title anyway. But featherweight's 145, so Amanda goes up and down in weight class for this one. So she's up for this one. It's the heaviest weight class for women. Nunes is minus 1,000, minus 1,275 at Bookmaker, minus 1,400 at Bet Online. Yeah. Remember the days I was betting Nunes against Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey getting plus 250, Danny?
Yeah.
Remember those days?
I remember that, yeah.
Oh,
I remember you buying me alcohol after that, yeah.
Well, I love doing it, but that price went away pretty quick. The last few fights is
sure
minus 1,000. And I'll tell you right now, the only fighter that really put a tough one on is Valentina Shevchenko.
And she won the fight, but I'll keep going.
All right, you shut your mouth. She did. But anyways, I look at this fight here. You can't bet minus 1,200. I don't care. You're not making nothing. You can't even use it in a parlay. It doesn't do nothing for you. Why even put risk of something happening there?
Yeah.
But Megan Anderson's a nice fighter, 11-4. But Amanda,
very good. Yeah.
but I mean, if you look at the metrics, Amanda's got her. Nunez has her 4.44 significant strikes to 1.82, takedown average per 15 minutes 2.5 to 0.56. The price on this fight is just so high, but you can take a couple shots here. You can do Nunez by KO at around plus 100. You can do Nunez by submission at plus 160, plus 170, something like that. Or if you got the balls and thinks it goes to the decision, you can take her at plus 250. Now, I haven't decided on that side of it yet, but what I have decided is that Megan Anderson has never been knocked out. She's got a tough job. Nunez has been a lot more careful in her fights, if you've noticed. She knows it goes 5 rounds. She lets the fighter come to her.
Yeah.
And there's so much tape on her now, the last few fighters are smart enough to not engage with her.
Kiev, you are a very smart person here.
Oh, thank you.
And the reason why I say that is, look, Megan Anderson, there's not a lot of women fighters that you say, oh, that person's coming up and that person's going to be amazing. But Megan Anderson, and I told you this the last fight, she's going to get a title fight, but she's 2 fights away from really being a title fighter, right? And I really like her a lot. And Amanda Nunes, she has nobody else to fight. So they had to put her against Megan Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And Amanda is such a great fighter. But again, like every champion, she does not want to lose, so she is going to back up, right?
Yeah.
If I looked at this fight, I'm not going to touch it, Kiev. If I looked at this fight, Amanda will take Anderson down and beat her on the ground. I didn't even look at the odds, but if I'm telling you that's what's going to happen, that will be how Amanda wins, taking her down and beating her on the ground, which is technically a TKO, but I don't even want to touch it because I hate betting against Amanda Nunes or with Amanda Nunes.
Well, I'll tell, and that's your issue. But for me, the safest play, in my opinion, is to take it over 1.5 rounds. And the reason that is because, like I said before, there's so much tape on Nunez. Megan Anderson would be an idiot to go like that. She's going to stay back. Nunez is just going to, stay back as well because she has 5 rounds. She's been trained. She has no reason to get engaged right away in this fight. No reason whatsoever. Megan Anderson will get a couple blows standing up, but she's never been knocked out. She's only been submitted twice, and then she went to decision 2 times. The thing about Megan Anderson, though, is that she's only won by decision twice. So I am a little bit worried she's going to eventually get her chin involved into Amanda Nunez's fists. And that's probably going to happen at some point. But right now, I think over 1.5 rounds, I took it at minus 120. It's at minus 130 now, Danny. So I'm glad I did give this out to some of our members at minus 120. It keeps going up. I think it goes past a round and a half. Now, if you look at what Nunez has done, does this make sense, Kiev, is the question? Well, yeah, it kind of does. You look at Nunez's last 2 fights against Felicia Spencer and randomly, she went to decision. Both of those fights, kind of same thing.
Yeah, that's why I can't trust her.
Yeah,
I love her. She should be knocking people out. She should be grounding and pounding them.
3 of the last 3, and this is a 5. These are 5-round decisions. 3 of the last 6 fights went to a 5-round decision. One of those, right. and that doesn't count the one she beat Raquel Pennington in the 5th round. So, right. So and then she had the middle where she knocked Cyborg out and Holly Holm right away, right? And those 2 fighters, we should have predicted. I think we did take Nunez TKO, or I did, but Holly Holm and Cyborg comes at you. They come right at you, and so we should have known Amanda Nunez was going to knock him out in the 1st or 2nd round. But I think that Megan Anderson's got to be a little smarter than that. So I'm going to give her some credit for that. So maybe I'll take Nunez for TKO, but for sure, couple stars on the over 1.5 here. All right, man, we'll get.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let's go to the next one. We only have a few minutes left, and it's time for the main event. And we have Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. Oh, man. I'll tell you this here. I looked at this fight many times, many times. And Adesanya is moving up in class because he wants to be a double champion. He wants to have the 185, and he wants the 205, Danny. Now, that's a big difference, in my opinion. That's a 10% difference there in body weight. 10%, a little over 10%. That's an amazing jump. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I think Israel is probably one of the best strikers that we've ever seen in the UFC. I mean, the guy is fantastic. They call him the last style bender because he could really, you're going to kick the guy in the head and he's like bending backwards like a Gumby, right? The guy is fantastic, right? Who else do we see like that? Who else do we see the guy that was a striker that was destroying people at his weight class? Let me guess. Conor McGregor? Conor McGregor was destroying people at 155. One punch, knocking one of the greatest fighters of all time out, Aldo, right? How many times do we see Conor McGregor doing some great things at 155, and then he goes, you want to know what? Let me put my huevos on the table, and let me go to 170. 170 is a big weight difference, right?
Yeah.
115. So we're talking about guys that are going to 170 and guys that are at 170 that are fighting at 190 and dropping down. So here's the deal, right? I don't think Jan is getting enough credit, enough
props, from people.
Props, exactly, props for being a fighter at 205, right?
That's a tough weight, man.
Dude, he's dropping down to 205, right? Because John Jones left, and Israel didn't have enough nerve to go up to 205 when John Jones is there, because they knew he was going to get destroyed. So Jan is coming in here. Jan is the king of being the underdog. Go look at Jan's last fights, right? He's the king. So he fights Dominic Reyes, underdog, beat him. Corey Anderson, underdog, beat him, knocked him out. Sousa, right? He was a favorite there. Rockhold, underdog, beat him. The guy just beats people being an underdog. So you're telling me that Israel, because he's got this big hype train behind him, who hasn't fought anybody, in my opinion, that are worth a salt, and he's going to go up to 205 from 185. He's going to go up to 20 pounds, not even make 20 pounds up, and fight a guy with huge hands and be a favorite? I can't see it, Kiev. I can't see it. I am 100% okay with taking Jan as the dog straight up at plus 165.
Look at that. Plus
beating Israel because of the size difference.
Danny, it's plus 195 in many books. It's
go.
plus 187. And dude, you hold on. If you want to bet that, do not bet that now, because there's going to be so much money coming in on Israel on Saturday. Everyone's going to look at Jean's record, and they're betting it, and they're going to go with the 20-0 guy with all the hype here. Well, dude, in my opinion, I lean with what you say. And it's a dog. I can never argue against going with the dog. My only problem is what my eyes have seen from Adesanya. I mean, he is that good. He is Gumby.
Amazing.
I mean, just so great tactically on his feet. But
you're right.
And he's slippery. He gets to the ground, he gets up. He's very slippery, right? But now he's facing a stronger guy that could take him to the ground in Jan and Blachowicz. I mean, when he's getting bear hugged, guillotined, when he's getting rear naked choked by Jan on the ground, he might not be able to escape because Jan's just so strong. He's not used to fighting somebody that big, and maybe he's doing that in practice, but we know that practice isn't the same thing.
I'm going to tell you something, Kiev. You're right. Here's the difference, right? The only way Israel is going to win this fight is going to be 2 punches to 1. And that means Israel is going to have 2 punches, 3 punches to Jan's 1 punch. But go look back at Jan's last fights, and he's fighting beasts. Now, there are no jokes, right? Dominic Reyes. Look what he did to Dominic Reyes' body. Look what he did to Corey Anderson, right? And Corey Anderson, if you want to equate a guy at 205 plus to a guy at 185, the best guy that you could probably look at is Israel, because he's Corey is slippery, right? And he moves in, moves out, moves left and right. Mm-hmm. My gosh, Jan destroyed him.
Yeah.
Jan destroyed him. So he's never felt a guy that big punching him, and Jan can destroy him in 1 punch. Listen, Jan's got more to prove than Israel does. That's Jan's belt.
Yeah, and he hasn't had to defend it yet because, that fight against Reyes was in 2020. So, he's worked his way up ever since that Thiago Santos TKO. He has.
I think it's free money there. I think there's a lot of money there for you guys. And yeah,
Israel could get a little too. This could be just a little bit too cocky, and John's going to sit here and be like, "Wait a second, hold up,"
Yep.
Hey, it's time to defend my belt. And here's the thing. And here's what I like, Danny. I think that it's going to be a fantastic main event, of course. And I talked about the 20-pound difference already, and I talked about how good Israel is as a fighter. But I think that the best look is over 2.5 rounds, and it's minus 140.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that John is smart enough to not get too much into a stand-up fight with Adesanya. And he's going to go to the ground a lot. He's going to try to get to the ground, and hopefully he doesn't get caught doing it. But I just don't see this fight being over so fast. And I know it's 205, but in my opinion, John's going to grapple him the whole time. And Adesanya is slippery. So I like the over 2.5 rounds for minus 140. I'm playing that for sure. But I do like your points here, and I'm going to wait to see what this price is, because in the plus 220 range, which I expect it to get to, I expect this to get to at least plus 220 on Saturday. That's when I might be a small player on Blachowicz. The only thing holding me back is some of his older performances, but maybe that shouldn't. I don't know.
Don't.
Here's one thing I do want to say, though, real quick, Danny, about this weight class. What an amazing up-and-coming guys that we have with Magomed Ankalaev and Yuri Prochazka. Dude, Yuri's going to be a badass, and he's already coming up. He's that one guy that we discussed maybe a year ago or whatever. Yeah. Maybe it was over the summer, about how the hype is real on this one. But you also have, Rukkich, like who's fighting this week, of course, which is going to be an amazing fight. And you have Anthony Smith, Volkan Oezdemir, Johnny Walker. What a great weight class. But there's some serious up and coming guys here that are hungry, especially Magomed. I mean, he's just so good. So I'm excited to see who the next fight is as well. But Glover Teixeira, of course, is there as well. So
that's a great point. And this was John Jones' division for years, right? And John Jones is now going up to a heavyweight, which he probably should have been if he wanted to be the man.
He weighs 240 now.
Yeah, and that's exciting to see. I'm really excited to see John Jones moving up to heavyweight. Listen, guys at their weight class, whatever they are, 170, don't ever think they're 170 pounds. Think about them 20 pounds heavier. If these guys are moving up, they can't put on weight that easy, right? It's not easy for them. It's easier for them to make the weight class than it is for them to put weight on. And all that comes back with power. It's all power, right? Mm-hmm. So, look, we all love Conor. Conor's completely fun to watch. I think he's fantastic, right? He went up to 170, got his teeth kicked in, had to go back to 155. We all love Max Holloway. Max Holloway was a king of 145. He went up to 155. He looked like a child against 155 guys. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge thing that you have to look at with anybody going up in weight class, especially from 185 to 205, 155 to 170. So keep that in mind when you're putting your money down, because that's your hard-earned money. I look at it completely, really, because of history. So, there's going to be a lot of things going on, guys.
All right. Well, great stuff, Danny. That's all the time we have, my man. Really enjoyed talking the fights with you. We're going to be texting back and forth during this huge event. Early prelims. Guys, like I said, don't miss this one. This one's going to be huge. Thanks again, Danny.
You're the best, brother.
All right, my friends, if you have any other questions or want us to break down any fights for you that we missed, because we still have a lot to cover this card, please tweet us at the Oddsbreakers or tweet Danny at Cub Fan Danny. He'll definitely answer back with his thoughts on your questions. Everybody, what a huge weekend. Enjoy the basketball games, enjoy the fights, and go get some winners.